Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Marco, currently a second year med student of Ateneo School of Medicine and Public Health. This video is pretty much going to talk about how I prepared for my med school interviews, and maybe I'll give you some tips on how you can do it also. I have a bit of a disclaimer for this video. The thing is, my med school interview experience was before the pandemic started. I think it was around Feb or March 2020. So face-to-face pa yun. My experience will be significantly different from the next few interviews. So what I'm gonna do is I ask a really close friend of mine, Tintin, to supplement my really old head med school interview experience with her new experience, which just so happened to be last year. She's a first year right now. So my part is actually split into two. I have before interviews and during interviews. Well, a bit before, right before interviews. Anyway, you'll get what I mean soon. So let's start with the before the interviews part. As soon as I actually locked down an interview schedule, I started preparing on the interview itself. So in my head, I really had to prepare for the interviews. I can't say for certain how big the impact of the interview will be for your application, but I can say that it has a significant effect. So if you do really well on the interview, it will look really good with your application. So before the interview, the first thing I did was I actually tried to know myself better. What do I mean by this? Sounds kind of weird. Ever since third year of college, someone told me, try to keep up a CV now so that you won't forget it along the way. So I've been trying to keep track of all the things I've been doing ever since third year. So what I did for this part was just read my CV. It sounds pretty weird, but I did this with the intent of being able to pick out specific experiences, pick out specific projects that I've handled or positions I've held that I can use as specific examples if ever they do ask it in the interview. I think this really helps because I take less time to think, and I can, at this very moment of reading my CV, I can already think and look back on specific things that I did well or specific things that I did not do well, so that if they ask what are my strengths, what are my weaknesses, I have a specific event in mind already that I can pull my experience from. Second thing I did was I read up on school backgrounds, or I just read up the school's website that I'm applying to. I only applied to two schools, ASMPH and UE, so it wasn't really that much big of a work. And I don't mean memorize the whole website. It's more of just reading up on the mission, vision, mission statement kung meron, and core values. I did this in order to just be familiar with the school, maybe figure out what type of student are they looking for, what type of student they want to come out of their school. And I'm not saying this so that you would tailor your answer to an answer they're looking for. That would just sound really disingenuous if I'd use that word right. So it is really more about just knowing the school you're applying to, so that if ever you do get in, you have a level of expectation, or maybe you have a level of expectation when it comes to what questions they will ask from you. Third thing is I tried to keep up with up-to-date events. So current events, basically. I didn't really do this actively because I already follow a lot of news websites or, news pages on Facebook. So I just really read up on it every day, every morning anyways. Maybe around a week before my interview, I try to read up on current health events, current Philippine events, or maybe international events, just so I would get a feel of what's happening. In my head, if they would give me a situationer, maybe a current event that would happen, I would actually know a couple details that I can maybe use to, further make my answer better. And the last thing that I did before the interview was to actually try to practice some interview questions. So here's the thing, I didn't really do it in front of a mirror. I didn't talk to myself or anything. I just pulled up a list of common interview questions for med school online, and then I read through a couple of them. And what I would do is I try to formulate an answer in my head with 5 sentences or less. I think it's a good form of practice just to organize my thoughts as soon as I read the question. It's not really in preparation for what they will ask me. It's just to practice myself to think of an answer as soon as I read it. My light just died. Okay, my backlight is significantly weaker now, just so it doesn't die on me in the middle of the shoot. So now we can move on to the second part, which is during, or maybe a little bit before the interview itself. So here's the thing, like I said a while ago, I already had my interview face-to-face, so So some of the things that I will mention here might not apply to you. So if you're watching this in the really near future, I hope, and your med school allows you to, face-to-face interview, some of it might apply to you, but as of today, some of it hindi mag-apply. So the first thing I did was actually I tried to shake people's hands as soon as I meet them. I think it's just professional, and I've heard that a good handshake can leave a good impression, and leaving a good impression is a positive, right? Second thing I did was, honestly, I just greeted them. Good morning, good afternoon, I know it is very obvious, but the thing is, when you are really nervous, or when I'm really nervous, I forget about the little things. So those little things that would add a bit more sociable side would really help. Third thing I did was I dressed for the occasion. This is gonna sound weird, but how I look, or how I think I look, and what I wear can really affect like my confidence. So when it was during my interviews, I wore my best long sleeves, I wore my best pants and my best shoes. I felt like I looked really good, so I might as well be confident when it came to the interview. Yeah, the schools would often just give you a dress code, so usually business casual or smart casual, stuff like that. So you have to dress according to that. So the thing I did was, honestly, I just dressed as best as I could based on what they tell me. And honestly, like another sub message to it is, especially if you try to look your best, is that you give off the vibe that this is important to you. This is something that you prepared for, and this is something you prioritize. So the next part, interview proper mismo. Part a while ago was preparing for the interview day itself. Now it's during the interview. Stuff I did was not to be fake or not to be plastic, but I tried to be as engaging as I can. I tried to fake it till I actually made it. So what I did was I tried to laugh at their jokes. If I found it funny, I would laugh. If I didn't, I'd probably give them a slight chuckle here and there. If they were saying something that I would agree with, I would nod. Usually I'm not as expressive as that, so I would nod in agreement if I did agree. And then I would try to actually make eye contact with the person I'm interviewing. Someone who gets nervous with these type of things, I get that, it's pretty weird making eye contact. But then I think the conversation would be more engaging if I would look them in the eye. So that's what I did. I wouldn't stare. I would look them in the eye, look away, just make it feel more natural than a formal thing. Second thing that I tried to do during the interview was I tried to speak slow enough to be understood, but fast enough to make sure the interviewer didn't feel like my answer was dragging way too long. I also tried not to forget to breathe. I know my heart was racing really fast, which would, I guess, make my breathing really fast as well. So I tried to pace myself with breaths every now and then. I already mentioned this a while ago. If you can, try to make your interview much like a conversation rather than an actual formal interview process. I don't know, for UE, I was blessed with an interviewer that would actually let me do this. So instead of making it a really formal, hi, I am Marco, it's more of just a discussion, a conversation, and it let me really become more genuine and more reflective of my answers instead of just a really robotic, generic answer. So if you can, try to be as genuine as you can and try to make it more conversational. And the next thing I did was, when I'm asked a question, maybe a follow-up, I tried to pause maybe for a beat, maybe a couple seconds to think and formulate of the answer. I mentioned a while ago that when I was practicing for interviews, I would read a question and think of an answer immediately. That was in preparation of this. I think that, taking a second or two to think about your answers is better than answering out the gate and giving the most disorganized or unorganized answer ever. Trying to answer in a more coherent way rather than a bola way is pretty good, or it's actually much better. The next thing that I did was actually, if the interview did not specify a specific number of items or lines, my default would be 3. So for example, if they asked me, what are your favorite moments in college? I would always default to 3 favorite moments in college. And if you read your CV or maybe went back to memory lane before the interview, you already have 3 on the top of your head as soon as they ask you that. I think 3 is a pretty good number. It's fairly balanced. For me, at least, it's fairly balanced. 2 is too little. 4 is just one too many to keep track of. 3 is just way perfect for me. It's like an intro, body, and a conclusion. So the last thing that I did was when they would ask me, do you have any questions for me? I would actually take that chance and ask something that I would actually want to know about. I know I have friends in ASMPH and UE that would give me an idea on some things that I would like to know about, but the same question would be answered differently by someone who's actually working in the school. So for example, in UE, I actually asked my interviewer in UE how the student culture was in UE. I wanted to know like what it was like from an admin perspective, and the answer was actually fairly different to what the students would say. I mean, it would pretty much mean the same thing, but the way he answered it was significantly different from how a student would actually answer it. So that was very enlightening. So that pretty much ends my half of this video. Hopefully you guys got something out of it. I think it's pretty long. Hopefully I can cut it down to a pretty short part. So now we can move on to Tintin's part. Some schools don't require interviews, but if yours will, hopefully this will help you.
Hi guys, my name is Tintin and I'm currently a YO5 student at ASMPH, and I'm here to give you guys some tips and talk about my personal experience when it comes to the interview process at medical schools. The very first thing that I did before my interview was to reflect on my why. Why do I want to become a doctor? What propagated this drive, and was there a specific event in my life that inspired me to pursue such a difficult career? This kind of brings me to my main overall point, which is to build your own origin story, because aside from your grades and your resume and your volunteer or job experience, interviewers want to get a more authentic look at you. The interview is a chance to emphasize your own story and connect it to your journey as a future physician. This brings me to my next point, which is to improve your storytelling. Like I mentioned before, the resume, the grades, the volunteer experience are just components of you. Now you kind of need to find a way to stand out from other applicants. So this brings me to my next tip, which is to avoid the savior complex as much as possible when you're answering questions. What is the savior complex? So a lot of medical schools are really tired of hearing the same thing over and over again from aspiring medical students, which is how they want to serve the public or make a difference or change the healthcare system. But for the interview process, think about what makes you different and stand out from other applicants. For me, I actually looked up essays that got students into Johns Hopkins, and it kind of helped me build my own origin story from there. And with my own origin story, I was able to connect my life experiences to the path that eventually led me to medicine. Once you're able to reflect on your why and build your own personal story, now you can move on to the technical part of preparing for the interview, which is looking up common interview questions and practicing them in front of a mirror or with a friend. Lastly, make sure to look up the school's mission and vision. I cannot emphasize this enough. Ask yourself, how does the school's values and objectives align with my goals as someone who wants to become a physician? Being able to bring up the school's mission and vision and connect them to your personal values and goals as a future physician will allow interviewers to see that you genuinely want to go to their school. And it will eventually also help you realize which school in particular you want to go to. So with that, I wish you guys good luck, and remember to just relax, take a deep breath before your interview, and just be yourself. I know that's corny to say, but at the end of the day, you could only be yourself during your interview. With that, I hope you get into whatever dream medical school that you're applying to. Good luck, and just keep up the good work.
Thank you so much, Tintin, and that pretty much ends this video. Hopefully you guys got something out of it. If you did, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If you are already a med student and you're watching this, do drop a tip down below for our future doctors there who are planning to apply. And if you're a pre-med who has a med school interview soon, comment down below a question. I'll try my best to help you out. I try my best to help out people, so ask away. I'll try to answer it as soon as I can. With that, all right. See you guys in the next video. Peace. I don't know what I'm doing with these poses.